Hey explorers, welcome back to Beyond Atlas Explore, where we uncover the planet's most jaw-dropping and unusual places. Today we're venturing deep into the North Atlantic to visit one of Canada's strangest islands, and trust me, this one's got a story you won't forget. Before we set sail, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our next wild adventure. Picture this, a remote, windswept rock off the coast of Newfoundland. It's tiny, just 800 meters long, but home to over 1 million seabirds, a haunting piece of extinction history, and a name that comes from something you can smell long before you see it. This is Funk Island, rugged, isolated, and with a backstory as wild as the waves that crash against it. Funk Island might be small, but it's packed with personality. Sitting about 60 kilometers east of Newfoundland's Fogo Island, it's basically a flat slab of rock rising just 15 meters above the restless North Atlantic. Measuring roughly 800 meters long and 400 meters wide, you could walk across it in minutes, but every step takes you through a place shaped by nature's raw power. The island is split in an unusual way. 2 fault lines cut right through it, dividing it into 3 distinct zones. To the northeast, the landscape is nothing but bare, weather-beaten rock, a harsh, exposed environment where almost nothing grows. Swing over to the southwest, though, and you'll find patches of hardy vegetation clinging to life in the salty air. It's a small contrast, but in a place this remote, even a little greenery feels like an oasis. Surrounded by wild seas and battered by fierce winds, Funk Island's geography doesn't just look dramatic. It's a perfect setup for the millions of seabirds that call it home. And as we'll see, those birds are a big part of why this place is so famous and so strange. So, why Funk Island? The answer hits you the second you get close, and it's not exactly pleasant. The island is home to over 1 million seabirds, and they've been nesting here for centuries. With that many birds, you also get an unimaginable amount of bird droppings, or guano. Over the years, actually over hundreds of years, that guano has built up into thick layers across the island. It's loaded with nitrates and phosphates, and when the wind shifts just right, the smell is unforgettable. That overpowering smell might not win it any tourism awards, but it's a sign of just how important this island is for seabirds. And historically, those birds, and their eggs, were the reason people came here in the first place. Long before it was a protected sanctuary, Funk Island was a hotspot for sailors, explorers, and hunters. Even the famous French navigator Jacques Cartier stopped here during his voyages. Why? Simple, the place was bursting with life. Birds were everywhere, their eggs covering the ground, and the surrounding waters were rich with fish. For European settlers and indigenous hunters alike, this was a natural buffet. People collected eggs by the basketful, plucked feathers for bedding and clothing, and hunted the birds for food. But the island's most famous residents were the great auks, large, flightless seabirds that looked a lot like penguins. In fact, before the 18th century, Funk Island was often called Penguin Island because of them. Sadly, the abundance of great auks also sealed their fate, and their story is one of the most tragic chapters in the island's history. If you could step back in time and visit Funk Island when the great auks still lived here, what's the first thing you'd want to see? The massive bird colonies, the rugged landscape of the stormy North Atlantic around it? Tell me in the comments. The great auk was once the star of Funk Island, a striking black and white flightless seabird that stood nearly 1 meter tall. They couldn't fly, but they were strong swimmers, perfectly adapted to life in the cold North Atlantic. Unfortunately, that inability to fly made them incredibly easy targets. By the 18th century, hunting had become almost industrial. On the western end of Funk Island, hunters even built enclosures out of massive granite blocks. They would herd the great auks inside, making it easy to kill them in huge numbers. Some were used for food, others for their valuable feathers, and in many cases, the bodies were simply discarded after the feathers were taken. The slaughter was relentless. By around 1800, the great auk had vanished from Funk Island entirely. A few small populations survived elsewhere, but they too were hunted down. The last confirmed great auk was killed in 1844. Today, many of the great auk skeletons displayed in museums around the world can be traced back to Funk Island. It's a chilling reminder of how quickly humans can drive a species to extinction and how easily abundance can turn into absence. The island's story might have taken a dark turn here, but nature had a plan for its next chapter, one filled with millions of other seabirds. Funk Island may have lost its great auks, but it's still one of the most important seabird colonies on Earth. Today, more than 1 million birds crowd its rocky surface each breeding season. It's home to the largest common murre colony in the world, along with Atlantic puffins, razorbills, and other seabird species that thrive in the rich North Atlantic waters. Because of this staggering bird population, the government of Newfoundland and Labrador declared Funk Island an ecological seabird reserve. That means no one can visit without special permission, and the only activities allowed on the island are for scientific research. Even with permission, landing here is risky. The seas are rough, the winds are fierce, and the rocky shores are unforgiving. In the waters surrounding the island, fishing is allowed under strict provincial and federal regulations, but on the island itself, nature calls the shots. If you're enjoying this journey through Canada's strangest islands, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next adventure into the world's most remote and fascinating places. Reaching Funk Island is no small feat. Even if you had the government's permission to land, the island's location and environment make it a serious challenge. The North Atlantic here is cold, rough, and unpredictable. Waves crash against the rocky shore, and there's no safe harbor for boats. Because the island is such a critical breeding ground, all recreational and commercial activities on the island itself are banned. The only people allowed to set foot here are scientists conducting approved research, and even then, safety and conservation protocols are strict. The waters around the island are a little different. Fishing is allowed, but only if fishers follow strict provincial and federal rules to ensure the ecosystem stays healthy. For most of us, Funk Island is a place we'll never set foot on, and maybe that's exactly why it remains such a vital sanctuary for its millions of feathered residents. Funk Island isn't just a dot on the map, it's a living lesson in both loss and resilience. The extinction of the great auk is a stark reminder of how human actions can wipe out even the most abundant species in a shockingly short time. At the same time, the island's thriving seabird colonies show what can happen when a place is left to nature's care. It's a sanctuary, a warning, and a success story all at once. Funk Island proves that protecting fragile ecosystems isn't just possible, it's essential for the survival of the wildlife that depends on them. Remote, windswept, and unforgettable, Funk Island is one of Canada's strangest and most fascinating places. From its unique geology to the overwhelming seabird population, from the tragic extinction of the great auk to its role today as a protected sanctuary, this tiny island holds a story far bigger than its size. It's proof that even the smallest places can have a massive impact on our understanding of nature and conservation. If you enjoyed exploring Funk Island, hit subscribe and join us on Beyond Atlas Explore for more incredible journeys to the world's most remote and extraordinary locations.